Speaking of fighters and as someone who has been indispensable, it's been Robert Roach. And I know Betty Marafino is somewhere out in the audience as well, but I couldn't have two stronger supporters and individuals who get it with respect to Social Security. I want to go over a couple of things today, and but first and foremost to thank you and President Schuler and obviously Robert and Betty and all of you for being here. And this is as the Sisters of Notre Dame would say, I know I'm preaching to the choir, but it's the choir that leads the singing. And if ever we needed people united and out there speaking, it's today. As Robert alluded to, very unsettling times up on Capitol Hill. This afternoon at 12 o'clock, there'll be votes for the first time in the history of the country because the speakership was vacated by its own party members. And there is no Speaker of the House. And no legislation is able to go forward without the Speaker officially being there. Now, the Democrats will be in unison and vote for Hakeem Jeffries today, and it's not clear, even this morning, yes. And if you saw him on Meet the Press on Sunday, he just does a spectacular job. So let's set the stage real quick. And I'm preaching to the choir here, but you know Social Security. And listen, the nation's #1 anti-poverty program for the elderly. The nation's #1 anti-poverty program for children. The nation's #1 program for disability that more veterans rely on than the VA, and also provides spousal coverage as well. And the shame of it all is that Social Security hasn't been enhanced in 52 years. Imagine, Richard Nixon was president of the United States the last time Congress enhanced. Now, when you hear them talk about, oh, how we love Social Security and we're going to protect it, that means they're okay with the status quo and, hopefully they'll get around to voting on it. But most recently, what you'll be hearing, and when you go to the Hill tomorrow, is that the Republicans are talking about having a commission and talking about studying it. What do we need to study about Social Security? There's only two ways that you can go here. You can either enhance the benefits, protect the system and its solvency, and make sure that people who have paid in to a program throughout their lives get the benefits that they were promised, and that Congress do its job. You're going to ask them to do something that I know is a great deal, and it's a big deal for everybody. You're going to ask them to do what they were elected to do. Vote. How about a vote? A vote not just to preserve the nation's #1 anti-poverty program, but to expand it. Because for 52 years, Congress has done nothing. So, and in the process of doing nothing, what does that mean? That means that there are more than 5 million Americans who've worked all their lives and paid into a system and get below poverty level checks. That means they get a check below $12,500, and that's all that they have to live on. 5 million of our fellow Americans, predominantly women, and amongst the women, predominantly women of color. It's been years since we enhanced the program, and our bill that Robert has been fighting for calls for a 2% increase across the board. It also calls for 23 million Americans getting a tax break. Because as you know, if you have to continue to work once you're retired and you're earning income, your Social Security is taxed. That is flat out wrong. It's been double taxed. And for so many of you that are in this audience, and Betty Marafino, chief amongst the fighters for it, finally under the leadership of President Biden, the repeal of weapon GPO, to make sure that teachers and firefighters, police officers, municipal employees are able to receive the benefit that they earned, that they paid into a system for. That's what we're fighting for on Capitol Hill and more. But we have a group of people who are dedicated to bringing this system down. Former Speaker McCarthy couldn't say seconds after he got out of reversing himself on the debt deal and breaking his promise to the president, how pay no attention to what they agreed to. They're coming after Social Security and Medicare. And how are they going to come after it? They want to come after it through a study that has to take place behind closed doors, that nobody can see and is unamendable. And when it comes to the floor, gets an up or down vote. When you hear the word commission or study, all you have to know is what that means is cutting Social Security. Take it to the bank that that's what they're up to. Otherwise, why wouldn't you have this debate in the full light of day, as it should be done? And why not do an extraordinary thing? Vote so that people that you represent across this nation get to see where you stand on a program that shamefully hasn't been expanded in 52 years. This idea somehow, and listen, we used to have to go back and say, well, you know, the Great Depression, we know what happened then. People lost everything. We don't have to go back to 1929. We only have to go back to 2008, 2009. And in the Great Recession, what we saw were people's 401ks became 101ks. And they find themselves without the money that they thought was going to be there. During that same time period, Social Security never missed a payment. Not a pension payment, not a disability payment, not a spousal or dependent coverage. Why? Because as President Biden has said, it's the full faith and credit of the United States of America. It is a sacred trust between the people and its government. And it's only Congress that hasn't acted, and they need a swift boot in the lower extremities and to get going, because by 2034, and now it's moved up almost a full year, by 2033, the program will be cut 20% across the board. And so many feel that by stalling or studying or pushing off into the future, it will collapse on its own volition without Congress taking a vote. We can't stand by and let that happen. As George Meany would say, the people's lobby is our most effective tool. Your voice on the Hill, and as labor has done throughout its history, not only uplifting the workforce that you represent, but bringing along all of America with you. And we're talking about a plan to keep people out of poverty. No one gets wealthy on Social Security. The average benefit for a male is $18,000, a female is $14,000. And imagine those more than 5 million Americans making under $12,000. Under our bill, the new floor for Social Security will be 125% above the poverty level. Everybody will get an increase across the board. More than 23 million Americans will get a tax cut. We're going to repeal WEP and GPO because it's been wrong from the start, but also expand other opportunities for children to be on their parents' policies. For others like grandmothers and aunts and uncles who have to end up taking care of children, that they get the benefits that they need as well to do the job on behalf of the American people. The people know this is an earned benefit, and how. And we're going to pay for it too. And how? Well, the president had a good suggestion. He said, we're going to lift the cap on people making over 400,000. Now, I want you to do something for me, please. Raise your hand if you're making over 400,000. You know, funny thing about that, I've yet to be in an audience talking about Social Security when I ask people to raise their hand if they're making 400,000. And so far, people who are making over 400,000, frankly, God bless them, they probably feel they don't need Social Security. But that doesn't exempt them from having to pay what the person making 30, 50, 75, 100,000 is making. And so the president has said, we're going to lift the cap. Just lifting the cap on Social Security for people over 400,000 allows us to make sure, as we outline in our bill, that we're able to enhance all of the benefits I just discussed and extend the solvency to 2066. We also close a loophole under the FICA law that many wealthy people have used not to pay FICA taxes. So what the president did was right and just. Less than 1% of the nation makes more than 400,000. In fact, 0.6%. All we're asking is that they pay their fair share. So this isn't, you're not asking when you go to the Hill for people to do anything other than vote and help their own district. So now what we've done, and Robert's aware of this, and I use these as an example, we've done and we've made sure everybody in Congress gets their own Social Security card. I happen to take, in this instance, both Representative Jason Smith, who currently is the chair of the Ways and Means Committee, and Rich Neal, our ranking member, who will be chair in the next session. So we want to make sure that you have this information when you go to the Hill. We've given it to all of our colleagues. And what does it say on here? It tells you how many Social Security recipients you have in your district. It then tells you not only how many Social Security recipients you have, but how it's broken down. How many pensions, how many spouses, how many dependents, how many people get disability. And then it also says, probably can't read it back there, I have a tough time up here, but in Jason Smith, you know how much money comes into his district monthly? $280 million. Now, where do people who get Social Security checks spend their money? They're not going out and getting stock options with it, I can tell you that. They're spending it right back in the communities they live in. There is no better economic development plan, especially one that's already there in your district, that under our proposal will provide them more money, uplift people out of poverty, provide them with the bare necessities. And where are they going to spend that money? Right back in your district. And for 23 million of them, they're going to get a tax cut. When you're talking to Republicans, tell them, what do you have against a $23 million tax cut for people? What do you have against an economic development plan for your local economy by the people who need it most? And during this pandemic and the global inflation that followed, who is the group most impacted? People on fixed income. And who are the people on fixed incomes? People who receive Social Security benefits. Who are they? Your brothers, your sisters, your cousins, your next door neighbors, the people you go to church with. That's what this is all about. Get on this hill tomorrow. Go to every single office and make sure that you let them know that you know exactly what's going on. And you're not in favor of any kind of study where we kick the can down the road and do nothing. And even worse, what they're proposing is raising the age. Trust me on this. For every year you raise the age, it's a 7% cut in benefits. How does it possibly make sense when they say, well, you know, people are living longer, so therefore they should wait longer before they get their Social Security? If they're healthy and they desire, you can already wait longer to receive Social Security and you'll get more of a benefit. But for the vast majority of Americans, they can't afford a 21% cut if you raise the age to 70. And how is it that if you're living longer, you should live on less? That's not what Roosevelt intended, and that's not what President Biden intends. And that's why he's been so out front and spoken about this. Please go on the Hill tomorrow. We need your help. You are the people's lobby. God bless you. God bless America. Thank you.